Hello everyone, my name is Christian from Global Reach, and today we're talking about 5 tips to make the most out of your Google Analytics 4 property. By no means are these tips the most important or the absolute must-dos, but these are just some recommendations that we have so that you can make the most out of the data that you have on your Google Analytics property. So let's start with the first tip, and this tip is to define your channel groups accordingly. So brief overview, channel groups are basically categories in which users come into your website from. If a user is coming to your website through Google search, they're probably going to come into organic traffic. If they're coming from social media, they're going to come in through social traffic. However, things can get a little muddled when people are coming in from like an email newsletter or a monthly newsletter. This can be a little bit messy, and you want to make sure that your traffic is going into the right place so that you can gauge the success of your campaigns properly. So let's talk about how to define this. This is the home page of Google Analytics. What you want to do is you want to go down to the left-hand side and go to Admin, and then you can click on down here, you can click on Channel Groups. And once you click on Channel Groups, what you'll see is if you've not touched this before, you will see the default Channel Group section. We already have a modified section here, but for the default channel group section, this is what you have by default. And what you can do is you can create a new channel group. And you can edit any one of your channels over here, but let's say you have a monthly newsletter and you want to make sure that people from the newsletter goes under email traffic. So let's go down here into the email section. And we already have a rule in this group. That's not a problem. Let's keep that there. But let's also add a new condition. Let's also have down here, we'll delete this, and click on or instead of and. And we're going to have default channel group matches email, or we can have campaign name, add a condition, matches exactly, whatever the name of the campaign is, newsletter or monthly newsletter. Something like that. This will highly depend on what you have in your UTM codes. If you want to look at UTM codes, we have another dedicated video for that. But just for this example, let's say your campaign is called monthly newsletter. You would just type in the name of the campaign right there. So that is how you would define traffic for a traffic source. You can do this for any one of your other traffic sources. You could do it for video, you can do it for social, you can do it for shopping. Anything goes with this. Just make sure that you are defining what you want to track and make sure that you are defining it properly. All right, the second tip here is to define your data retention. So with Google Analytics, you now can define how long you want to retain data. And generally speaking, if you're trying to assess the performance of your website or the performance of your web presence in general, it's always a good idea to look at it from a seasonal perspective or over a long period of time. So it's always a good idea to extend that data range or extend the data retention range. So let me show you how I do that. From your homepage, you want to also go down here to the admin section, and you want to look for the data retention feature. So it'll be under here, under data collection and modification. So click on data retention. And what you have the option for is you have the option for 2 months or 14 months. It's always good to just retain that data for as long as possible so you can use it in case you need it, and then put it at 14 months. It's one of the situations where you don't really know you need it until you do, so it's always good just to set it at 14 months for retention. Okay, moving on to our third tip here, and our third tip is to utilize custom dimensions. So let's go over to the admin section and look at custom dimensions. So custom dimensions are going to be here under data display. So let's talk about it real quick. What are custom dimensions? Custom dimensions are basically dimensions that you are tracking as custom events that are not readily available in Google Analytics. So let's say you have a specific button on your website that's really important. Or let's say that you have a contact form that's really important. What you want to do is make sure that you are defining that event properly and putting it as a dimension in Google Analytics 4. You can do this by setting it as a custom dimension in Google Analytics. You can also do it through Google Tag Manager, but once you do it through Google Tag Manager, make sure that you're coming back in here and doing it on Google Analytics. There's a bunch of ways to do it. We have tutorials on Google Tag Manager on this channel. So look for that, and you can do it. But generally speaking, if there's any sort of metric or measurement that you have on your website that's not readily available in Google Analytics, it is highly recommended that you use the custom definitions feature to make sure that you are tracking the success of your website. And everyone's website has a different measure of success, so make sure that you're measuring yours. Okay, and pointer number 4, let's talk about key events. So key events were recently introduced into Google Analytics 4, and it is important that you recognize your key events as a key part of your Google Analytics 4 property. So real quick, key events are just any sort of activity on your website that counts as a conversion. They are no longer called conversions, they are now called key events. So like I was saying earlier, if you have a lead form, a purchase, anything like that on your website that is considered a key event, make sure that you are defining it as a key event. So to do that, you want to go down here to the admin section and you want to look for the key events button. So it's going to be here under the data display. It will be right here, key events. And you want to make sure that if your event is in your Google Analytics 4 property, make sure that you are marking it as a key event. This just tells Google that, hey, this event is important. This is a key indicator of success. We want to keep track of it. And after you define it over here, what you can do is you can look for the key event metric all across your property. So one example here is to go up to the left-hand side and click on Reports. And once you're in Reports, you want to go down to somewhere like Acquisition or Engagement, whichever one. And let's look at Pages and Screens. And under this report here, you'll be able to look at the number of key events triggered for each page on your website. This is just one example of how you can use it. There are many ways to use key events, but just make sure that you are enabling the key events on the admin section of your website. Okay, and pointer number 5, the last pointer, is to make sure that your Google properties are connected. So if you're using something else besides Google Analytics, make sure that you're using the connection feature on Google Analytics 4. So if you're using Google Ads, for example, make sure that you are linking those accounts. It's always good to have data feeds going back and forth and have them connected. That's never a bad idea to do. To do that, you want to go down here to the admin section and you want to look for the linking section. So over here with product links, it really depends on what you use. One item that you would use if you have a website is Google Search Console. So make sure that your Google Search Console is linked and your other features as well. If you use BigQuery, if you use Google Ads, make sure that those things and those properties are linked to your Google Analytics 4 property. That is all we have for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope these tips were useful in your Google Analytics 4 journey. And feel free to watch any other tutorials on our page.